So today, the demo we're going to do is how to recycle pastels from pastel dust or broken bits of pastels, how you can reconstitute a pastel stick from those. So I'm one of these silly people, and those of you who've seen me at workshops have seen me do this. I save pastel dust. And I'm even one of these persons, I'll come around to your easel. If you're going to dump it in the trash, I'll come around to your easel with a brush and a little container, and I'll brush your dust into my containers. This container is, I got at a craft supply store. It's for, I think usually for in the bead section, jewelry making section. They're kind of handy. They get a little messy because the dust might end up on the edge, but if you're aware of that and handle it carefully, I don't know if you can see here, but this is about half full of pastel dust. This is a lovely, sort of a Payne's gray from a mix of pastels. Depending on what I'm working on, a fall scene, it might be a more orangish gray because I've been using oranges and greens, but it's really fun. You'll get great neutrals by saving your dust. But then we also have those inevitable tiny pieces of pastel but you dropped it and it shattered, or maybe you have a collection of small bits and they're just really hard to hold. You've gotten down to the very end. I like to sort of group similar colors. This little vial has sort of a dark reddish brown. A sienna has some that are more of a lighter value, and I combined those. This one, some dark blues, some medium shade blues. I just group them together, put them in a container, save them for later. Usually what I do is about once a year, probably in the winter when I need something interesting to do, I'll pull out my containers of dust, I'll pull out my little vials of bits, and I'll start combining until I have enough to make a pastel. So hopefully you brought some along with you, but if you didn't, I have some bits that you can use. Okay, I'm going to start with a container of dust. Now, I have my workspace prepared. I learned how to do this from Terry Ludwig at one of our Maryland Pastel Society workshops. And one thing he taught us, since our theme is recycling, he would use a grocery bag, and that would be his work surface. And I have some of these to hand out. And when you use this, it's really handy because you can manipulate your pastel on this. It gives you a nice working space to keep your area clean, but you can also move your pastel around, sort of roll it if you want. And for you, since you're not at home doing this, you can wrap your pastel up, take it home with you, not worry about getting color on your upholstery in your vehicle. Get home, open it up, and let it dry out. Okay? So we have some of these to work on, and you might have to share if we don't have enough. So, a workspace. Now, I prefer to recycle these at the grocery store, but it's great for this purpose. Other tools I use, one of the most important things you need to have is distilled water, and you can get this at your local grocery store, or distilled water, not spring water, not tap water. You want distilled water, okay? Because you want it pure. Okay, because you want it pure. Another thing I have 2 palette knives. I like straight edges because I like to shape my pastels I like to square them off into squared edge sticks. You don't have to do this. You can roll them, and you can use your piece of plastic to roll them in. But the nice thing about using a palette knife or a straight edge is you can shape, and you can also scrape that pastel paste after you've watered it down. You can scrape it up so that you're not leaving a piece of plastic covered with beautiful pastel paste. So it's more efficient to use a straight edge. But you can play around with that. The other thing you'll want is an eyedropper. I have 20 eyedroppers, so when we get to the point where we're turning our dust into paste, you want to add the distilled water very, very slowly, a drop at a time, okay? Because otherwise, it's gonna take a year to dry out. It'll be a mess. Okay, I also have wipes to clean my hands. I have paper towels. I'm gonna borrow these for video purposes. Gloves are a handy thing to have. I forgot to bring ones.
So you have them.
But they're here. Yep. So this is handy if you like to keep your hands clean, because this can get messy, especially if you're hand rolling. But I think you can be pretty creative and keep your hands clean by rolling using the plastic. Okay? All right. You know what? I'm going to start with a broken pastel. So, because what we want to do is we want to get this pastel down to a consistency of powder and a dust. Now you'll see in this little sample, I have, they're sort of an off-white and a tan. There's even a little bit of light yellow in here. Tools. A metal palette knife is nice. Usually I like to have one this shape, but I misplaced them, so I brought this metal one. I have brought spoons that I bought at the dollar store. They were very inexpensive. Oh, and you want to bring,
This might make your life
Dot
easier.
brought a mortar and pestle.
Ooh.
Okay?
That's $10.
So,
Is it for sale?
since,
Not
and,
mine.
and I'm going to do it with a spoon, just because I want to do it the hard way, because if you're going to use a spoon, let's try to be very careful. And I'm going to grind very those beautiful pastels. I'm going to do it very carefully and see if I can actually do it without making pastels fly all over the room and being something horrible I have to clean up. Now, intentionally for this little vial, you'll see I've got several colors here. And that's okay, I don't mind. If it's a broken pastel that I really love, like eggplant purple, that I've dropped, I would very carefully scrape and sweep up every bit of dust and put it in a little container. And I wouldn't mix in other colors. But for this, I wanted to have enough to make a stick, and it's fun. We had a member some years ago who did a demo using his purchased pastels, but he also had a lot of handmade pastels. And he actually, when he would grind his pastels, he would leave chunks in there of different colors. And he liked that element of surprise when he would paint. And he'd lay down a color from his homemade pastel, and it might be a neutral gray stick, but suddenly there's a little streak of orange next to a streak of blue. And it was kind of fun. He got some nice effects there. So this is pretty good and powdery. So I've just demonstrated to you that, yes, yea, verily, you can effectively create pastel dust using a spoon without making a huge mess. Okay? So I am going to tap off my handy tool. I'm going to set this aside. Now, and speaking of little things, something just came in there off the plastic bag. All right. Now I'm going to use this little palette. I just want to get a feel for it. How well did I grind it? Because I can feel a little better as I drag it across with a straight edge. That round edge wouldn't work. So there's a little bit of grittiness still in here. I'm trying to smooth it out, but I think it'll be okay, because I'm going to be a risk taker and allow those little bit of little chunks in there to stay. They're very small and grainy. And they're so close in value that I'm not terribly worried about using a pastel made with dust that has some grit still left in it. Okay, now here comes the exciting part. I've already put some distilled water in a little container, and I have little cups over here, so we can use these and pass them around, because last thing we want is to spill lots of water. And seriously, go slowly. I'm gonna start with, I know it rolled right off. I'm gonna start with 4 drops and see what happens. I don't want much. And go slowly. I mean, this could take a while, but be patient, because you'd rather go slowly than flood it and have
Pastel soup.
Yeah, that just wouldn't be good. The first few drops told me I can be a little more generous this time. Now this is a pretty good amount. Now it's starting to paste up. That's good. All right.
2, 3.
I'm going to be daring for
5.
Oh, it was 5 that time. Okay. All right, now it's starting to get gummy. Oh, you can't imagine how much I really want to squeeze a whole bunch on there right now. It's like, oh, hurry up. Especially doing a demo. It's like, I don't want to make you wait. I want you to play. But then if I make the mistake, you guys are going to go, oh, that's a terrible demo. Yeah.
We can edit it out, don't worry.
Okay, it's now starting to stick to my little plastic palette knife. I've done this, normally I do it with a metal knife, but I couldn't find them because I'm very disorganized. Oops, okay. So I'm trying to scrape it off. It's not quite pasty enough, so I made a little mess. It's okay, I have my work surface here.
What is this?
Now I want to test it, so, because then we can see how well they work. I like being a guinea pig. Let's see. It's pasting up, it's pasting up. Scrape that off. That's why it's nice to have 2 straight edges, because you can keep your knife clean. And with the straight edge, you can also, as it gets pastier, you can keep pushing it back in. And that happens to be really convenient when you're trying to shape it. Not to the shaping stage. So the goal is to get it to the paste. Now it's starting to get pastier. It's getting close. It's a little too dry, but now I'm going to have to be really slow and careful.
It's kind of like making pie dough.
Yeah. Now one thing, when I first started using pastels, and when I realized I was in love with pastels, like in the first year, it's like, I want to make these things. And I happened to have in storage a whole bunch of pigments I had gotten in college when I was trying to follow recipes in Meyer's handbook, art handbook, because I was experimenting with trying to mix pigments and doing caustic. And so I had lots of pigments, and the pigments went very far. So I had plenty left over. So I've got this stash of pigment in storage, and I keep saying someday I'm going to make pastels. But when you have the pigment, it's like you have to get the gum tragacanth and
The secret formula.
The
binder.
And you've got to start planning. You got to get your. Yeah, this is getting pretty close. So I think right now I'm going to see how well I can shape it, because I think if I add any more water at this point, it's gonna take forever. So, see,
She made a Ludwig.
I told you, he was the one who showed us this. Now, when he demonstrated this, he had taken a palette knife that was sort of like your spatula, and he actually, because his pastels are perfectly sized, right? But he sometimes makes them by hand, the perfect size. And he started by using metal palette knives, and he actually custom cut his metal palette knife so that it wasn't tapered like this. They were like your
More like straight edge.
more like, yeah. Let's hold this up. This is a giant version.
It's a giant.
But he had a straight edge pastel knife or spatula, smaller, this size, that he custom cut to the size that he would make pastels, and then he would hand make his pastels that way. And then, now he didn't do them all by hand, obviously, but for demonstration purposes, it was really cool to watch him do that, and it looked just like it came out of the box, except it was wet and sticky. The other thing he did is he would square them off, and you can see that even mine right now, as I try to square it off, it's a little rough. Terry Ludwig, and this may be on a video, I'm not sure, but he would sand them afterwards to get them perfectly squared. Well, because, I mean, those of you who use Ludwig pastels, you know that you can take them right to your surface and you're not going to have a little nodule sticking out in the corner.
Right.
It's going to give you the mark you expect. Okay, so here we go. There's my little pastel. It's not perfectly smooth.
It's so cute.
So there you go. There's a reconstructed pastel stick. Now you'll have to let it dry. What I have done, because you'll see it's a little rough, like in a day or two, I come back and I check it, and I might kind of go like, oh look, it's a little rough. Can I pat down that little edge? And if it's dry enough, that usually works, but not always.
How do you get it home without messing it up? Just very careful.
Well, usually I'm doing it at home, so I don't have to worry about it. But you could also shape it with your plastic, because here I am, I can't leave it alone because it's a pastel and I want to play with it. So I'm kind of reshaping it now. But you could also take this and you could try rolling it around. Should we do that? Mess up my pretty square pastel. I think I would still try to shape it first. And you'll see there is waste. Oh, it hurts me to see that waste. But it just is that way. But you could wrap it up and go home, and then you could kind of reshape it.
And how long again does it take to dry?
Oh,
2
as
days?
long as it takes. I mean, I think that would depend on
We're talking
the
days.
humidity in your house, the heat, the temperature, the humidity.
Not minutes or hours, but
Oh, no, it's going to take days.
my cats are gonna love this.
Yeah, you want to put it in a place that's safe. But you could also try rolling this. So there you go.
It's beautiful.
Does it,
I have a question. Do you have to compress that? I know you didn't do any real compressing, because I've remade them before, and sometimes they're a little
crumbly?
real crumbly.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of the pastel itself that you're reconstituting, because some of them, even made by professionals, are crumbly. And I think the compression is an issue. I can't really do a lot of compression with a plastic flexible palette knife, and I'm okay with that. But if you're concerned about that, that's where I would use a metal edge that's stronger, or roll it. I think I like using a straight edge to square it, just because I feel like rolling it would probably leave more pastel on the plastic than not, but it depends how, and I haven't tried that. So, but you could play with that. Or, as wait a little bit and then press it down more. This one's fairly dry, it's not too wet, but I have made ones that were a little gooier and I had to add more dust. So there you go. Have at it.
When you added those when they were gooier, did you just like roll it into it? Or did you
No, I
remix
kind
the whole
of
thing?
did the same process.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
You kind of know before you go to shape it.
Yeah.
You know that if you have, it's when you're in that mixing stage where you have the paste, you'll know if you added too much water.